Welcome, welcome to our weekly 8FM book club, Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And we are continuing on with three chapters from The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, chapter 8, 9, and 10. Really enjoyed them. There was kind of like some variety in there, I found, from talking about the ripple effect, how we can affect, like a drop in a pond of water, how it can ripple out and how we can affect the world. And that's what we're doing here in our business is definitely doing that. I mean, I think we've taken that step in wanting to be responsible and helping. We do this to help ourselves, but there's a point where we all realize that what we're doing is we're actually affecting a lot of people, right? I mean, the only way you can really build this business is with people. And so we automatically affect people and create quite a big ripple, I would think, because, we're reaching a lot of people, right? It's not really something someone normally would do in their lives. So I think that's pretty cool. And then, chapter 9 was about you have to start with a penny. And then number 10, I kind of found as another hit of truth. Another reminder, a little bit of a smack in the butt, that life is not necessarily straight, but it's a curve. And we got to be honest with ourselves as to the curve it takes. So, we can get into the discussion. For me, chapter 10 is the one that really kind of stood out for me in terms of like what I got from it. I'm kind of seeing issues with my health that I can see the curve and I can see where I need to kind of change that curve. So that kind of spoke to me. But if any of you ladies want to come out and talk about any of, what stood out to you in any of the three chapters, we can jump right into discussion.
Well, what I got out of it is also take an honest look at your finances, health, business, personal development, and relationships. That was also an eye-opener for me. And also about the 5% of the people. 95% of the people are blaming other people for whatever they are doing, or that honest look, that I have to also take an honest look at several things, especially if, I think my business and finances. That was an eye opener for me. So.
Okay. I'm in love with this book. It's like I'm just seriously, it's one of those ones I'm like, everyone needs to read this book. But yeah, these three chapters were awesome. The ripple effect to me, I mean, I feel like I've grown up grew up in an activist family, very focused on how we make a difference in the world. So for me, starting my business was, yes, about how to create financial freedom for myself, but I was always clear that it's with that awareness of wanting to make a bigger difference in the world. So that sort of just really spoke to me, this chapter, of how deeply important it is for all of us to really feel like we're living a meaningful contribution to the world, that the world's a better place for us having been alive here. So I just really resonate, and I think the more we can tap into that, it fuels something much deeper than just getting our own personal needs met. So I just believe that so profoundly, and it was just really lovely to have that kind of reiterated. And yeah, I'm just looking at the essential points in the chapters to remind myself. Just having that in chapter 10, really talking about the difference between people on that success curve and people on the failure curve, being, core difference being that responsibility and blame, like you were talking about, Via. it's just like so true. You can see it in all the areas of your life where it's like, I'm taking responsibility, or I'm externalizing and blaming for whatever is happening. It's just like, did you hear that? My husband's like, yeah, you got to stop that. Echo, echo. Not that I'm externalizing or blaming, he says. Classic. And just that, yeah, we can have, I'm sort of jumping around a bit here, but like we can have an effect on the world. Like we are having a ripple effect on the world, and we get to choose whether it's a positive effect or a negative effect, like in our businesses or in our lives, depending on what we're doing daily in a slight edge kind of way. We're either having a positive effect on our own lives or a negative effect, and it compounds over time. Same with our impact on the world. It's like all of those small decisions we make impact our world, and it compounds. So I just, yeah, to me it broadened that sense of what this is all about. It's not, yeah, reflecting on our own lives, but also like especially having kids. And they talked about in I think in chapter 10 about the no's and the yeses, like how many no's we hear as kids and where are the yeses. And as a parent with little kids, like it's so important to be aware of how much we say no to kids and stop doing this and this and how kids need to hear those yeses and that upliftment and that belief that, you know, they can make really great decisions, you know, for themselves and for then what they feel like is possible in the world. So yeah, there's some of my thoughts. I could go on and on, but that's it for now.
Lovely, Terry and Via. And I love everything you're saying. The one thing that stands out to me a lot that we all kind of study a lot of personal development and listen to audios and all of that. What I love that he does is he constantly stresses time. And, others don't, not in this way. Like there's a lot of, if I find that time, the way that it's perceived, it's like everything is fast, right? I mean, he talks about that in one of the chapters, but I find that a lot of other personal development doesn't show time as a tool, kind of. It doesn't show it as something that's actually good, right? It's like a lot of time we hear, that you won't have enough time, or that life is short, or that YOLO, right? Right? People use that kind of mentality, right? And yes, life is precious, of course, and anything can happen. Where I think I'm having my internet's like in and out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. So I don't know where it cut off because I froze. But I like this idea that yes, anything can happen, right? And we do need to really cherish life and live life to its fullest. But really, most people live a long life, right? We do live a long life. And if you look at, we think of accidents, we think of, how things can happen in a way that's quick, right? It's not really the majority of the population, right? Most people will live a long life. And we have this mentality where maybe we can do anything we want, kind of, or there's that immediate gratification kind of society that we live in. And this is so different, right? This is he's stressing time as something that definitely is good. It's something to our advantage, but only if we use it right, right? And one thing that really hit me on page 201, time will be your friend or your enemy. It will promote you or expose you, right? And it's so true, because you'll only get better with time, or unfortunately, things will not, right? Things will get worse. And it's not that things will stay the same. They don't stay the same. They don't go in a straight line. And if we don't take it upon ourselves to kind of consciously make a choice in these little things, right? That's like almost the simplest, funniest part, right? It's like these little things that we do that we just really think are insignificant. But like that chapter, about a penny, right? How people will come up to him about the penny story and say, well, they started with nothing and then they got all this, right? But he's like, a penny isn't nothing. A penny is a huge thing. And it's only huge, though, with time and with that conscious choice of what you do with the penny, right? And so it's interesting because I even thought, well, yeah, I didn't really think, you kind of think of the whole story as an analogy. It's a really nice story, but yeah, I would more think like a penny is just a penny, right? But it's not. And it's like one little action we do is a big thing. It's a starting point, right? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So I like this constant reference to time because it's not something that we see everywhere. We hear more about time as, you have 90 days or you have, right? But the funny thing is he essentially still says the same thing because we can make a lot of changes in a year, which is not really that long, right? If you compare a year passing where nothing happens, or if you change 1% of your day, you changed your whole year by 365%, right? And so a lot can happen, but he doesn't say it that way. He says it more like, slow down to go fast, where we can focus on those little things. So I love his constant reference to this idea of time because my mind almost wants to not accept it because of what's been ingrained in me, I guess from society, from, even other things that I've heard so much, most of my life, right? That time isn't like that. That time is, kind of just do it now, right? It's like these big things we have to do in the moment. But this is totally opposite. It's like almost counterintuitive. That's at least how I feel. So I don't know, do you ladies have any kind of feedback on that? Because I almost want to reject it, right? And I like that there's a constant reminder of it because it makes me kind of at ease. Alicia, I don't know if you're able to come out because I see you're kind of walking.
Yes, I'm multitasking. Thank you. I print something. Same thoughts on the slide edge, and I feel like I'm kind of behind on it, so y'all are kind of catching me up, and I think that you're right on the time and the momentum is why I'm catching up. I'm trying to figure out, it's so important to understanding where you're at in time to be able to harness that power of completion and where you're moving and so forth. So I like how he talks about the habit and where he places like the penny, where you're started, and to see the different actions on that. So that's why I'm kind of feel like I'm catching up, figuring out where I'm at, and so I can evaluate how to create that momentum or where to move and where to go from that. So this is helpful. And I like the questions he asked at the end of chapter 10, I believe. He kind of evaluates this in different steps in my version. I know we're different versions of everybody, but this he puts different steps. Steps 1, you got to write it down and describing how to look at it every day, and knowing the 3, knowing the paying price, and 4, start with a plan and breakthrough. So like I said, I feel like I'm going through all these different steps, and every time I go through it, it's different, and so that's where I'm trying to find tips and figuring out where I'm going. So that.
Love it, Alicia.
She frozen again.
You're cutting in and out a bit.
Okay.
I heard most of it.
Okay, thank you.
And I love that. Like, it's about knowing where we are right now, right? And having that honesty to be able to see it, first of all, because that's probably one of the hardest things, to be really honest with ourselves and to really kind of, see like, where have I taken responsibility and where have I not? Right? And I know I'm doing that for sure, because it's just, time is passing, right? And now it's like, it doesn't necessarily feel so bad. Like, I guess I would have this feeling like I have to keep catching up if I don't do certain things. But this idea too that, you know, it is the small things, time is passing, but I can shift very small things and change the trajectory of where I'm headed. And so it's not like this, you know, sometimes we might feel like, oh, you know, it talks about the past, right? Where, and I know I do this a lot, where I kind of get stuck in the past of maybe what I could have done better. Or what if I had done the Slight Edge 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or when I was a teenager, right? What if, right? And we go into, you know, all of this stuff, and I mean, that's not productive, right? But kind of bringing it into the moment and saying, well, I can do something small today, right? In this aspect of my life, or this area of my life, that maybe I can see the curve going in a way where I don't like it, or maybe have already seen for a long time that I don't like. And so it makes it feel like, I like that he also said you don't have to be a superhero, right? Because that's something that we see in other personal development. It almost sounds like you have to be this superhero to achieve. Like, I think of 10X, right? I read that book 10X. I don't know if anyone's read it here, where you have to do like 10 times the effort. And I was like,
it's interesting though. I'm actually literally just reading that as well now, and it's like he keeps stressing the overtime thing of continuing to do stuff over time. Like, he keeps referring to time in a way I wasn't expecting, which is good. You know, it's not just bang, it's like time. And just as you're talking then, Kat, reflecting, because I've been going a lot, oh gosh, if I'd implemented, if I knew this information, you know, years ago, or especially living on the land here, we've got 15 acres, and it's like we've put in a bunch of fruit trees, but it's like, oh my gosh, if we'd put in fruit, more different, like avocados and different trees, we'd have 8-year-old trees almost fruiting, you know. But the ones we did put in are 8 years old, and some of them are all fruiting, but I hadn't been watering and mulching, and we're in quite a dry period, and some of them were looking like, you know, not thriving. And I'd been thinking, oh, I've got to like block out, you know, a half day and just like blitz all of these fruit trees and weed them and water them and mulch them. And then I was like, actually, I'm going to apply the Slight Edge here. And I just decided that I was going to do one a day. I was just going to completely, you know, clear all the grass around one tree, fully mulch it with all this wood, you know, chip and great mulch, water it really well, give it some nutrition. And it's like, I've got 4, I started this like 5 days ago, so I've got 4, I'm going to do it again today. So I've got 4 trees now are just like already looking like they're thriving just because I'm doing one a day. And like in a couple of weeks, you know, 2 or 3 weeks, I'll have all those fruit trees like totally having been loved. And it's like, I know that they will produce a lot more fruit and just thrive in their own right because I started doing one a day rather than thinking I had to wait to get it all, my time and all the resources and everything ready to do all of them at once and letting them sort of struggle. You know, it's been really lovely applying it to all different areas of my life, this concept, and feeling totally manageable. It only takes me 15 minutes to do one tree, you know. So yeah, that's one example in my life that I'm just like, yeah, just really enjoying this feeling of empowerment and how easy it is. It would be easy not to, but it's so easy to do it. And it's like, feels great.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I can totally apply that to how I treat my business sometimes, where there's like one thing that I keep putting off and then it keeps like growing. And then I'm like, I'll just take, you know, X amount of time and just do all of it. But it gets more and more overwhelming, and then it gets put off more, right? And it's like, it feels like this huge thing. But exactly like you just showed, like nature is always, I think, one of the greatest examples because it's just right there, right? And it kind of happens in front of you over time. So same here, like if I just chunk down the activities and do one small thing, I get way more done in the course of, let's say, a week than if I try to do everything in one shot, right? And it's like, yeah, I can apply that to even like trying to do that with my diet in some way, right? Trying to like cram it all together. And I think that's kind of like how society almost teaches us things. Like we do have pressure. Like I remember being in school And it's the same thing, you know, people cram before their exam, right? Or like cram in information right before. And it's just this mentality of doing that, I think, which is just, I don't know, it's not good.
You know what, as you were speaking, the word desperate like came to mind. It's like we have this like real desperate energy around time often in all areas. Yeah. So it's like we're trying to cram, get overwhelmed and cram, and sense this sense of like real desperation to make whatever happen in a certain time. And this is just totally shifting that energy of that. So that's just, that word just totally popped into my mind. So.
And yeah, and it's interesting too, because let's say with, you know, your fruit trees, if you were to, let's say you did put aside a day and you were to cram in all the fruit trees, probably they wouldn't get the same amount of attention. And the ones that you would do at the end would probably be, you'd be tired, you wouldn't give as much love, and they wouldn't, you know, flourish as much as if you just do them day by day, right? And so it's the same for anything else in, you know, what we do in any aspect of our life. If we try to cram that in, it's not the same. We can't give the same attention. And yeah, there's like this desperation of almost like thinking we're going to be ahead in some way. But it just makes me think that if we think that small actions are insignificant, but we think that maybe if we cram more in, it still can seem insignificant. And really, it's like, you know, nothing really changes. So it's almost like more can change if you do less in each day, you know, or if you can do those actions, but put more of that loving energy into those things where you're not feeling rushed or pressured, right? And just do the things that really need to get done, right? Versus taking shortcuts even, right? Taking shortcuts like with the fruit trees, right? You probably start to take shortcuts by the end and just be tired, and, you know, we just want to get it over with, right? And it's like that mentality of getting things just over with and done, but then what's the whole point of doing it, right? If we're not really going to do it kind of to the best of our ability. So just, yeah, I mean, this book is like amazing, right? It just makes you think about everything in life, because this applies in every aspect. So, Via, do you have any thoughts? Probably going to end out the Hangouts, and if you have closing thoughts or anything you want to touch on.
Well, it's I have to think in Dutch and talk in English, but it's late for me. To see it in everything of your life, it's also an eye-opener for me, not only in my business, but also in my family, at my job, at my cubicle. That's something to think about. And also the time problem. I always think I have a time problem, because I have a job and I have to do my business, and when I do it, how much hours does it take? But I do every day a little bit, but I always think it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. So, and that's only a thing I think. Sometimes I do maybe enough, but for me it's never enough because of the time. So I will think about that in the next week for me. So to give myself the time that's enough to do little steps every day, and to be I don't know the word in English, but to be okay with that. So, and I love this discussion and your thoughts about it. Yes. So that were my final words.
Thank you. And I do have to say, I mean, because he talks about it in the book where, again, it's like we can think of, you know, I wish it was like this, or I wish I would have done this, or had more time to do this. It's like this feeling like there's never enough, right? Never enough time or any of that. But instead kind of reframing it. And for example, Via, like how you said you go for walks, right, on your lunch break, and how you bike. If you compare that to someone that doesn't, right, to someone that sits in their office at lunch, right? And the health kind of repercussions of that. And if you think of it long term, it's like you're on this vastly different curve versus someone who wouldn't do that, right? It's so different. And you saying you shoot a video, every time. I mean, you're way ahead of the person that doesn't do that shoots a video a month or a year, right? It's like, it is. And I think we all can do that, where we can kind of reframe and say, what is the good in what I'm doing, right? He says that somewhere, I remember, what's right in what I'm doing, not what's wrong, right? and I know because it's all about questions that we ask ourselves, and it's that thing where instead of thinking, what could I have done? Well, what am I doing that's good and that's right, that's helping me go forward? And then focusing more of that energy on doing other small things that also become the right kind of trajectory in that curve. And then it's like this compound kicks in. And I think there's also a point too where I read this somewhere where, because he said that someone that's negative all the time is because it's almost like we can be 50% negative and 50% positive, right? We can walk down the street and smile at someone, and then the next person we can frown, and it's like they cancel each other out. But if we can kind of get to that point in our life where we can become maybe slightly more positive, 60%, let's say, then our life can start to look so much different that it becomes easier to be 70% more positive. And it's like it can start to shift just with these little actions. Instead of being 50-50 or 40, 40 positive. I don't know, it's just, it's like a tipping point in our life where these little actions can start to, you can literally see the trajectory of your life, like as a whole. So it's just so much to think about. So thank you so much, ladies, for coming on. I'm just gonna double check. So we'll do 3 chapters for next week. Is that cool? Okay, so we'll do chapter 11, 12, and 13 for next week. And thank you so much. I always get so much food for thought here. I love our discussions. I look forward to them. And appreciate you ladies so much. So, and if you're, watching the replay, you can join us live, or if you have comments and questions, you can post them below. And we'll see you next Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. I don't have chapter 13, so you have to clue me in.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia.
Thanks, Kat. Bye.
Bye.